The Monday, April 25th, 2022 meeting of the Marquette City Commission is now called to order at 6 p.m. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Bonsall?
Here.
Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Hanley?
Here.
Commissioner Hill?
Here.
Commissioner Stonehouse? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Mayor?
Here.
And Mayor Smith.
Here. Commissioners, we have an agenda in front of us this evening. Do we have a motion on the agenda? Pro Tem Mayor?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the agenda with the following amendment of moving item 3G under consent to item 4 under new business.
Okay, so item 3G would be item 4, which is Proclamation Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Awareness Week, making the fire truck purpose number 5 and the residential curbside recycling cart grants at number 6, correct?
Correct.
Do we have a second on that motion? Commissioner Bonsall?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'll second it, and I would also move item 3F from consent, Proclamation 25th Anniversary of Marquette Symphony Orchestra, onto new business to immediately follow the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Awareness Week proclamation.
Okay, so we've got item 3F, Proclamation 25th Anniversary of Marquette Symphony Orchestra will now be item 5. Fire truck purchase, item 6, and residential curbside recycling cart grant 7, correct?
Yes.
Do we need a second on your amendment, I would assume?
I'll second that motion. Sorry.
Okay, I don't know how we proceed on that. City Clerk, do you mind to read the proposal that we have on the table, and we'll see if we can take a vote on that?
Maybe we could do a friendly amendment. I don't think there was technically a second on the first motion
Okay.
to amend.
Got it.
So we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Mayor to move 3G to item 4. 4 and 5 would get moved down. And then Commissioner Bonsall seconded that, but then made an amendment as well.
Okay,
So I'm not sure we want to handle that. I mean, if a friendly amendment, I think, is in order, if you guys are happy with that.
okay.
We can
I
just
think
go with
that
that.
can be a friendly amendment. We'll just go ahead and take a vote on that.
Okay.
All right, all in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thanks all. Up next, we have announcements. I do have an announcement. The brush and leaf pickup is back on schedule. So this week is brush pickup in the city of Marquette, meaning the sticks and branches and, you know, that kind of good stuff. Stick it on the curb, it'll get picked up. Check the day of the week for your neighborhood. I know the first time in 8 years, mine moved by a day. So just pay close attention to which zone you're in and what day that pickup is happening. And then for the next 2 weeks, there will be leaf pickup, which is in paper bags or loose on the curb. So start cleaning up our yards. I guess it is spring after all, even though there were some snowflakes in the air today. All right, on to boards and committees. We have one appointment. Commissioners, do we have a motion on this appointment? Commissioner Hill?
I move that we appoint Antonio Adan to the Downtown Development Authority for the unexpired term ending on January 1, 2024.
And do we have a second? Commissioner Bonsall?
I'll second that motion, Your Honor.
Any discussion, Commissioner Hill?
I greatly appreciate his service to the community and stepping up to volunteer on the DDA. I know he's been downtown now for several years. It'll be great to have his voice there.
Commissioner Bonsall, anything to add?
Yeah, Antonio was a pleasure to work with, as one of our most productive and insightful members of the Ad Hoc Housing Committee, and I think as a downtown resident and worker, he'll have a really valuable perspective to add to the DDA.
Any other discussion from the commission? Just wanted to add, I've known Antonio for several years and been involved with Connect Marquette and his involvement there, and he's a very passionate community member, and I know he'll bring a lot to this board. So appreciate him stepping up. All right, all in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Brings us to our first public comment session of the evening. Public comments may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please clearly state your name and physical address. Anyone wishing to speak can approach the center podium.
Hi, my name is Matt Ludenberger, 1406 Garfield, City of Marquette. At least this. So I'm trying to respond to my last comment, which was a month ago. This format doesn't really allow for a back and forth, so I kind of felt more like a gotcha type moment instead of a I'm trying to open your eyes up to something moment. So my question about last month was about the ice at Lakeview Arena, and I don't want to encroach upon the Parks and Rec department because on their presentation later here, because this isn't a Parks and Rec thing in my mind. It's more of a building and maintenance thing for the city of Marquette. How do we create something and then keep maintaining it throughout the years? And right now, Lakeview Arena has, in front of this Superior Hockey entrance, maybe the side entrance, has water that flows down. It's been flowing that way since a long time ago. I don't know when the metal roof was put in, but the metal roof painting is starting to flake as well. We have multiple spots of moss all over the building. My point is that Parks and Rec department responsibility, even though they have an office right there at the other entrance? Oh, by the way, the water that flows over creates an ice mound. So all winter long, people coming into the building, not just my entrance, but to Lakeview, to use Lakeview, grandmas, kids, cousins, whatever, are walking over ice packs. Somehow it doesn't get plowed as often as it snows, and it gets plowed when it gets big, which it gets big often. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I feel like it's a building and maintenance continuation thing that only you guys can put a budget to. So please put a budget to it. Right now there's there was an event for figure skating at Berry Event Center. Their sound system is great. Our sound system has a low hum, and somehow the connectors don't work. I brought it up in February, still hasn't been fixed. These are the things that budgets, and I'm hoping you guys could come through and do a walkthrough, because there's a door on the far side that has a hole that goes from your ankles to your knees. But it's not a hole that goes outside of the open window. It's just a hole that has rusted stuff that goes inside of a steel door. That kind of thing, now that we don't have ice, can be fixed. And I don't mind not having ice in July and June and August, you got to put it back in. But now, when there's still snow out, can we please have a place, and I'll use my last 30 seconds to say it this way. There's a difference between sport and recreation. And I'd like to recreate skating. I would like to skate around as a figure skater, as a hockey player that's not playing hockey, just skate, because it's just like flying. And that's what I want to bring around. And I think that's what our asset is. And if we could leave it for another month, that'd be great. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? You can go ahead and approach the center podium. Name and physical address, please.
Hi there. My name is David Kronberg, and my address is 1317 North Front Street in Marquette. My employer is Smart Zone, Innovate Marquette Smart Zone in Marquette. I joined the team in this past fall as Director of Entrepreneurial Services. I'd like to read a letter from one of our clients. I'm writing in support of the Innovate Marquette Smart Zone and their assistance in helping us develop our local project, Marquette Now. We started our website during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic as a way to compile menus, hours, phone numbers, and service updates for Marquette County bars and restaurants for easier takeout ordering. Since then, we've heard from many business owners and customers that are finding information on our website and using it to place orders. We're proud to have made a small impact in supporting the local businesses that Marquette County, that make Marquette County so cool. As we plan for the future and think about how Marquette Now can continue to benefit our community, the Innovate Marquette Smart Zone team has been an invaluable resource for us. Their team is currently helping us navigate new technologies that we can use to expand our current website and truly make our idea a reality. The Innovate Marquette Smart Zone is a perfect example of what collaboration can do in our community. With the support of its experienced team of entrepreneurs, we will officially launch Marquette Now with a native app in the near future. The author says, I thank you for your time and ask for your continued support of the Innovate Marquette Smart Zone. Thank you, Phil Lindblom, and his brother Doug. So thank you very much. I wanted to share that. And we have a couple other clients that would like to make an expression to you also. Thank you.
My name is John Bennett, 313 West Washington Street. I'm a local business owner in the city of Marquette. I've had a business here for 8 years now. Proud to be downtown, proud to be in Marquette, and proud to be able to employ 5 other people in our office. I work with Smart Zone rather, and Dave's team in a new venture that we're doing, and we're going to keep in Marquette here. I just want to state my support for the Smart Zone and the resources that they have provided my business as well as our future business. I think Marquette is extremely lucky to have an entity like the Smart Zone. I know with the forecast of entrepreneurship on the rise, Marquette being a place for many entrepreneurs to come, Smart Zone is going to be a huge asset for those people and for the city of Marquette. So just want to voice my support for them, and thank you guys for supporting them as well. Thank you.
My name is Henry Westland, and I live at 540 Center Street, Marquette, Michigan. I am a project manager at Invented NMU. I have been lucky enough to work on Marquette Now's project. I'm also aspiring to create my own company. I have partnered with another NMU student, and we are patenting a completely new and innovative paddleboard. And Invented NMU has been extremely helpful in the entire process. I also have had a blast working on other innovative ideas that have come through our doors. I know I would not get this experience anywhere else at a bigger university to get this hands-on experience that we get at Innovate Marquette Smart Zone, and specifically Invented NMU, the student side of the team. That's all I got for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And just a note that the commissioner's chance to respond is at the very end of the meeting. Anyone else for public comment?
Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic Street. You just had 3 people tell you how great Marquette is, and I'm here asking this commission to carefully consider raising the fees and the fines for littering to a significant amount. I sent an email to all of you with the proposal. I forgot one thing in that email, is that to double all accelerated fines for anything thrown out of a moving vehicle. And before you say, oh, that doesn't happen very often, it does happen. We've got the typical spring cleanup of Marquette, and I've been out and about, and I can't start my cigarette recycling yet because a lot of it is still frozen in the corners of parking lots and other debris places. And it's going to be like that forever unless Marquette takes a stand. Now, before you say this will kill innovation, it'll kill businesses, it'll make us be unfriendly, if you had a guest that came to your house and trashed it every time they came, you would make arrangements for them to stay someplace else. You'd make it up an excuse or something. There's an allergy because you couldn't stand that they trashed it every time they came to your house. Well, our local people are trashing the town. Our visitors are trashing the town. We're having a new sidewalk built on Wright Street just today. I'm proud to say I posted the first video of that. And that's going to be trashed too, because the trash is going to run all the way across that landscape. And this is possible to do if the city decides to do it. And I had a good question from one of the commissioners who said, how will we enforce it? The police have more important things to do. And yes, they do. Well, everyone has a camera phone. And all you do is put a nice little thing saying, if you see someone littering, get evidence of it and share it with the police. And guess what? You will get a percentage of the fine given to you. I appreciate you don't like it, but the fact of the matter is I don't like the amount of trash. When I first started picking it up, I thought, hey, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. It got worse. And city manager and I, when we were out walking last fall, we found huge chunks of construction garbage in the curb. Dangerous garbage, the kind of garbage that if a young child getting off the curb stepped on, that could be very, very problematical. And when I'm not trying to be an alarmist, I will go on this walk with any of you who choose to come with me, and you can pick the street. You're going to pick a street, there isn't any garbage here. We actually had a guy tell us on our walk last fall, oh, you're not going to find cigarette butts on our walkway. That was pretty funny because we were pulling them out of the mat. So please take into consideration that email. I'm not going to let go of this. I'm going to keep doing something about it with you until it happens, because I don't want to lose this beautiful city to a layer of garbage. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else for public comment?
Tony Boyle for 401 West Michigan Street. I actually came to you folks to talk today about wildflowers. We've been talking with organizations about planting native plants in the area and using that as a way to beautify our public spaces for very minimal cost, at no cost to the city and other organizations that wouldn't mind allowing people to plant. Also, planting flowers gives people more stake in these public spaces. These beautiful spaces are less likely to be trashed. I mean, people don't view a garden the same way as they view just a sterile lawn. You know, they're not going to be tossing whatever. But it's just one of these small things that we can do to really be in alignment with the goals that we have moving forward, the goals that are in the city master plan, and also the goals that are brought up by people that are coming in here. I mean, small stuff like just promoting the act of walk, when you go on a walk, when you go on a hike, bring a grocery bag with you and pick up what you find. That's just a thing that people will do because they like to be a part of things. We like to steward places, and we like to make an impact. So instead of punishing people, having a sort of retributive response to something that, we don't know the circumstances of, or, it's just, of course, negligence, but having a positive outcome, increasing people's stake in the community. These are things that we can do easy, cheap. It's not going to be coming out of the city budget. It's going to be spreading the burden out on more people. It's not going to just be having another fine system with, already overworked staff trying to figure out how best to enforce these things, especially when littering is such a crime that, folks, you can't figure out who threw down a cigarette butt. It can't happen for the most part. Just small bets, small actions adding up to a bigger whole. That's what I think we need to focus on. I see some of that happening in the consent agenda tonight. I'm very excited about some of the things that are happening, but we can definitely do more. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no further public comment is now closed. We have one presentation this evening. We've got Ellen Weingarten with the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. Thank you for joining us tonight, Ellen. While she loads her presentation, I know Parks and Rec is a wide variety of things we work on, all critically important to the city of Marquette. So appreciate it.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, introduction of myself, Ellen Weingarten. I'm a long-term resident of the city of Marquette, and I am the chair of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and I represent the community gardens. Marquette Community Gardens has 2 sites in the city. So I was thinking today about doing this presentation. I know that you guys hear this every year, pretty much, and not the last couple of years, but I think it's important to also speak to the public in terms of what the Parks and Recreation does, what the Parks and Recreation Board, Advisory Board does, but also what Parks and Recreation does for the city. It's so much deeper than just keeping our parks up. There's a lot of work that goes in, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But it was certainly something that I never understood until I got on PRAB. So the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board was established in 2002. And basically, our role is to advise the city commission and hear out city residents with their ideas and proposals, and to either approve them or ask for more work. We meet once a month, usually the third Monday of each month at 5:30. And I can say that we managed to do pretty well during COVID. We got used to being on Zoom together. There was a nice workaround, and I didn't have to get dressed up to go to meetings. Okay, so I just want to point out this list. So generally, everyone who is on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board is someone who has a stake in or a relationship with one of the user groups of the Parks and Recreation universe in Marquette. We have Alex Tizio from the school district. We've usually got a trails person, so if anyone knows of a trails person that wants to join, we need one. I represent the community gardens. We have James Cisorni, who represents citizens with disabilities. And we are going to have a total of 2 vacancies. Unfortunately, Matt Luce left us. He and his wife had a baby this year. So he's not on the list anymore. But we are going to get Amanda Gobert, who is the Marquette Junior Hockey Association Executive Director. She cannot come on until July because she's got to get 12 months under her belt as a city resident. I would encourage you all, if you have any interest, and even just a tiny bit of interest in any of the boards that are offered or that we have in place to help run things in the city, to take a look at joining. It's pretty informative. So, did I skip a spot here? Oh, this is out of place. Okay, well, I'm going to go through the city park system. As you can see, we've got 7 rentable facilities, we've got 21 parks, we've got 2 community garden sites, we have 9 baseball, softball fields, 3 soccer, 3 basketball. We've got multiple trail systems, multi-use, single track, groomed ski trails, and the fit strip. So we have a 5-year recreation plan that we adhere to, that guides us in driving the projects that we push forward for completion. And that's a priority list that is determined by the citizens of Marquette. So the first part of the 5-year recreation master plan process is to send out a survey to Marquette citizens, and if they take it seriously, then we get some good data back, and then our priority list is developed from that. And I might say to you, sir, that you should come visit us at the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting. Next one is in May, but I don't remember the date. So we also ensure that recommendations are supported by the community and meet the City Commission's approved policy goals. This list is really tough to see. It would probably take up 5 screens if we made it large enough for people to see. So I'm going to go through a list here. So I don't think, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that we had much of a presentation over the last couple of years while we were going through COVID. So there are some projects that we may not have talked about that got completed. I think they may be represented here, but I'll try and cover them on this list. So since the last time I was here, which is probably 2019, we've gotten the accessible beach mats at Clark Park installed. We've got new decker boards, glass, shower fixtures, and a skate hutch. A skate shack. I don't know what that is, but it sounds kind of interesting. And that's all been put in at Lakeview. Ongoing, we have a number of projects. Some of them are coming to completion this year. Originally on the list was the Hurley Playground flyball netting to protect the playground, and then some accessibility improvements for members of our community with disabilities. But in the interim, we've gotten a whole playground reno done. And so this spring, we're going to be unveiling all new playground equipment, some new landscaping, a new sign. We're going to have a ramp put in from the street, sidewalks allowing kids in wheelchairs to get back to the back of the playground to the swing sets. So it's just a wholesale upgrade. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. We've been working with the Kids Cove playground in planning. We've had a number of tourist park upgrades, family shower pods, service building renovations, playgrounds going in or starting to go in this summer, a pump track that's going to get put in, and then we're also working on creating an access road and parking lot for day use clients from 550. So I'll skip right through this. You're welcome to go see this on the city website. The five-year master plan is on the city website, and this you will find a readable version of this on the website. So 21-22 accomplishments. So as an advisory board, we supported the city staff in brokering a successful trust fund grant for Kids Cove. We got the cool bike path murals put in, and I remember when Tina Morin came to speak with us, she was thinking that they would last year. Well, they're still going, and they look great still. We've supported the Lions Lakeside Park, which, if you aren't looking very closely, it's right next to the Lake Superior Community Partnership building. It's so small that most people don't even know it's there, but they're going to be writing a grant and getting some monies to improve that space for people to, to sit and enjoy it. So we supported an ordinance prohibiting smoking in parks and enhancing enforcement of ordinances in beaches and parks, thanks to the giant bash that happened on the 4th of July in 2020 down at our beaches. We supported an agreement with the NTN to create a bike park at Tourist Park, the development of wedding and event policy in the parks, and supported the renaming of the North Sports Complex to the Jack Reynolds Memorial Sports Complex, which I think also went hand in hand in a ball field upgrade, correct, John? I want to say that in all of these accomplishments, while the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board is working to support the commission and the Community Services Parks and Recreation staff, I want to say that staff are extremely proactive in finding grants to fund these projects. Most of the projects that the Parks and Recreation group has to be grant funded, and for most of it, it also needs match. We've had projects that have been able to go ahead because we had a group in the city that was willing to fundraise for it, or sometimes the city can help us out with some money from in support from the general fund. We are all also willing to collaborate with groups who come up with an idea that's not on the priority list. Of course, the background in that is that it can't cost us any money. But if we can figure out a way to help them realize their goal, then we do it. And that's what happened with Hurley Field Playground. That's what's happening with the Lions Lakeside Parks site. And I'm not sure exactly when they're getting going on that, but we've got to get the grant money first. So goals for the upcoming year are to continue to monitor shoreline erosion and support remediation when necessary, work with the city on ongoing changes to the multi-use bike path in terms of wayfinding and signage, user safety consideration, relocation of bike path on Lakeshore Boulevard, and the County Road 553 crossing safety issue, and e-bikes. And I would like to add to the e-bikes is that since time progresses, we're finding that there are more and more new ideas and iterations of battery-operated recreational vehicles. I see a new one every week, I swear. But they're all on the bike path, so we have to figure out how to manage that and keep everybody safe. So that's part of the next section, but we're also going to support grant initiatives as they become available, supply input on issues and concerns as they arise. We're going to support further renovations at the Lighthouse Park, which looks awesome, by the way, and find a viable solution for a year-round dog park, which has been on the table since I started 7 years ago, and hopefully we'll get closer to one as my term expires. So the issues and discussion for us moving forward, funding of new projects, but the postponement of grant applications because of lack of matching funds is the primary hurdle for us. The paving of Lakeview Arena and other park parking lots, concerns about the paved bike path and safety crowding, again, ongoing monitoring of private use of public parks, and I can say that I think the biggest one is weddings at this point. They are everywhere. So continuing areas of interest for us are the preservation of the public shoreline, tourist, Shiras, and Lighthouse Park redevelopment improvements, Parks and Recreation Master Plan implementation, promote Marquette as a year-round destination with programs, special events, facilities, and trails. I would like to add that one of the reasons why we are successful as a city in terms of tourism and the number of people moving here is because of our parks and recreation world here, including the trails. The trails are just such a huge part of our life here. We as citizens are lucky to have, to be able to live in a city that has such great access to our natural features, the city, the lake and the parks around us. But it's because of the trail system that we are able to access them and be on them to the degree that we are. So, does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Ellen. Really appreciate you presenting and reminding us of the vast acreage that parks encompasses in the city of Marquette. You know, you think of parks, you think of the standard parks, but you don't necessarily think about the trails and the bike path and, you know, the sports complexes. And I know we do, but it's just a good reminder. Great updates. Good to see a lot of the progress that has happened and the projects that are hopeful in the future and the creativity that, you know, your group and the city staff uses to leverage the dollars we do have to make a bigger change. So thank you. Commissioners, any questions or discussion for Ellen? Commissioner Bonzel?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And Ellen, thank you and everybody else on the Parks and Rec Committee or Parks and Rec Advisory Board for everything that you're doing. Of course, we served together when I was on the board, and I think it's a great introduction to local government for anybody that is wanting to get involved, if anybody wants to apply for any vacancies. But it's also so diverse, all the different work that you do and the different facilities you deal with, from something that really is like one of the largest and most complex buildings in Marquette with Lakeview, all the way to the smallest little pocket parks and flower beds. So thanks for everything you do. I did have a question about the accessibility mats at the beaches. I know that when we were putting together the 2019 Parks and Rec master plan, that a couple of us on the committee at the time, you know, had pushed to include that over the next 5 years. We'd like to have these mats at all of our guarded beaches in the city. So I'm very encouraged that we have those accessibility mats at Clark Lambros Park, but I'm curious if you or maybe John could speak to what the plans are to kind of continue implementation of that recommendation in the recreation plan over the next few years.
I'll speak first, John, if you'd like to. My take on that is that we got those mats out and we're trying to see how they work before we invest in any other mats for any other spots. But it is certainly a worthy endeavor, and I will cede the floor to John.
Yeah, so that along with so many other things that we have on that list. So that list is of capital projects that were in that slide is 3 pages long, like type 8 font, and really it comes down to, you know, getting the funding. I think at one point we had applied for a grant for some more of those, and that grant was not successful. So as we find the opportunities and find the dollars for things like that, then we're able to implement them. Another challenge comes in with you know, just the logistics of staffing the beaches. So I know the fire department struggles with getting the lifeguards. A lot of times what we do with the existing mats is they have to approach the lifeguard and get a code, and then they're able to, with the help of an assistant, roll those out. So we've sort of been shifting which beaches are guarded, and so I think in the future there's a great opportunity for that, and we just need to find the funding and work out the logistics on it.
Great, yeah, I certainly understand that. I'm just glad that it is something that's top of mind for you folks. Other than that, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the mention of the year-round dog park, and I think another high priority item, major capital project for the next few years would certainly be figuring out what we do with the Presque Isle Park band shell, and what the future of that looks like. But those are two major, that and then a year-round dog park, I think, aside from maintaining what we have, would be two big ticket items that we need to look at. And I think both of those were included in our 2-year strategic plan. So just wanted to put a pin in that. I feel that's a high priority. I don't know if either of you have anything you'd like to say further about those projects.
Both of those projects are on our priority list. I don't know where they stand in terms of their priorities, but because we have to find grant funding for all of our projects, it takes much longer for us to implement the projects get to the projects on our priority list. So I do know that we've been talking about the dog park for a long time, and Prab, since you were there. The issues are finding property that will not be too close to roads in case a dog escapes. And then have enough space for us to put in a parking lot, and so Andrew McIver has been looking around and also looking to collaborate possibly with Marquette Township.
Commissioner Davis?
Your committee certainly is busy, as is the Parks and Rec Department, and it's really good to hear the scope of what is done with the advisory committee and that department. And you're very active in grants. It's probably one of the areas of the city that is the most active with grants. And I want to thank you for all of your work, but I really want to thank the community members, because a lot of the projects that you talked about are because people step forward and provide matching funds for these grants. And, people have different interests. The one, you mentioned the Kids Cove, which the funding is coming along really well in terms of supporting that grant match. The Lions Club is coming up with theirs. The Hurley Park, done without any grants, but just community support. And also the Williams Park with the tennis courts, and the Tennis Association really stepped up with that. So it's thank you, community, and those partnerships with the members of the community are so very important to making Marquette what it is. And so thank you so much for all of that, not only for the work that's being done here at the city and with the advisory committee, but with the community at large for the support that they provide for Parks and Rec. I am very happy that you are looking at safety on the bike path. It's become so popular, and now we're introducing things like e-bikes, and it's busy. I noticed that in some communities that I go to, they have actually 2 bike paths, or one very large one that has a lane for bikes and one for pedestrians. And it's certainly not going to happen real fast, but it's something that we can be considering as we move forward and putting in replacements of the bike path. I guess the other thing I wanted to say is that back to community input and community supportive projects. That's how the dog park and the band shell is probably going to have to become realities. So if you have interest in those 2 areas, we'll be asking. Thank you.
Commissioner Hill?
Yeah, thank you. Good questions. It just, again, reiterating the important and critical and overlapping work that happens at the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. Really, really appreciate your service. My question is South Beach considered a park that's in your purview?
I believe it will be.
because if there's going to be a work session with the Marquette Board of Light and Power on May 4th at 5:30, and my understanding is they're entertaining ideas about what's going to happen to that property, and that is adjacent to, there's a lot to figure out there, but I hope that as we go forward with our master planning, that we find good ways to coordinate with that spot. It's, a very heavily used park. It is one of the places that's, I think, us locals like to use. I'll just put it that way. And so, and especially, I live in South Marquette. It's, it's right down the hill. And I really hope that we find ways to work with the Board of Light and Power as we consider that whole entire stretch now together with Parks and Rec. And then all the other wonderful ideas, particularly the band shell and the dog park. We hear you. We know that folks want a dog park. And yeah, I think I second Commissioner Davis's recommendation that we folks get together and start to think about how we can do this together. And I love the idea of working with Marquette Township. That's a really terrific idea to hear. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Hanley?
I think mine might be more for city staff. I want to touch on the point of e-bikes. Right now, do we have any limitations for what e-bikes do on our trails, be it our paved trail or the mountain bike trails? I know that some areas have been seeing the e-bikes on mountain bike trails, and I don't know that that's necessarily the safest thing. So I was wondering how we're dealing with that.
Yeah, so I guess I can answer that. E-bikes are separated into three classes, class 1, 2, and 3. So one is pedal assist, no throttle, 20 mile an hour limit. 2 is 20 mile an hour limit with throttle. 3 is 28 mile an hour limit with a throttle. And so state law basically says that 3 can be on roads, 2 can be on roads and other things. I believe it's only class 1 that is allowed on the bike path, so that's 20 miles an hour, pedal assist, no throttle by state law, and the city has opted to follow state law. With regards to natural surface trails, so our single track trails, such as the Antan trails and others, state law prohibits those unless allowed by the either landowner or land manager. The Antan has opted to allow class 1 e-bikes on the south trails, so that's kind of where we stand with e-bikes at this time. At any point in time, if we have issues, the city can opt to take action to deviate from the state law as we see fit. And at this time, we're kind of testing the waters with how it's going. So,
Perfect. Thank you. That's the only thing that I had.
Any other commissioners? Thank you again, Ellen. We really appreciate you.
If I could just speak to Commissioner Hanley's point. So at the advisory board level, what we're considering is the fact that this is such a fast-growing area of recreation, and every year we're seeing more and more devices out there that can be powered by a battery. And so when Commissioner Bonsall was on the advisory board, we were talking just about e-bikes, and now there's so much more, and there are so many more e-bikes out there, and so it's been a difficult thing to nail down, but it's very clear that people are concerned about safety on the bike paths and that the city needs to do something, and so we're working on that, and so stay tuned.
Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it, Ellen.
You're welcome.
Okay, up next, we've got consent agenda. This will require a roll call vote. Commissioners, could we please have a motion on consent? Commissioner Stonehouse? Oh, I thought you raised your hand. Maybe not.
No.
Commissioner Hanley?
I motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
And Commissioner Bonsall?
I'll second that motion, Your Honor.
And City Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bonsall?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Hanley?
Yes.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mayor,
Yes.
and Mayor Smith.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, on to new business. We have 4 items. I didn't take very good notes. Can someone please remind me which number 4 is? Thank you. Item 4 for new business was previously 3G, proclamation Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Awareness Week. City Clerk, could you please read the background? Actually, there's not much background. Could you please read the proclamation?
I can do that.
Thank you.
Proclamation, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Awareness Week. Whereas the City of Marquette recognizes the historic, cultural, and contemporary significance of Indigenous peoples of the lands that also became known as the Americas, and whereas the City of Marquette is located on the ancestral homelands of the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy and Gitche Namabini Zibing is the traditional name of Marquette, and whereas in some areas of the country, Indigenous women are murdered at a rate of 10 times the national average, and whereas in some areas of the country, acts of violence are committed against 85% of Indigenous Two-Spirit people, and whereas the state of Michigan is home to 12 tribal nations since time immemorial, and more than 100,000 American Indian Alaskan natives, and whereas in response to this epidemic of violence, the murdered and missing Indigenous women and people movement is drawing much needed attention from law enforcement, legislators, and the general public. And whereas identifying the root causes of the danger to Indigenous women is key to identifying solutions, we must address the systemic causes, collect and report data, reduce and eliminate violence, and help Indigenous women and girls heal from violence. And whereas on this week, we commemorate the lives of missing and murdered Indigenous women, continue to shine a light on this issue, and promote policies that will help solve this pervasive and tragic problem. Now, therefore, the Mayor and City Commission of the City of Marquette proclaims and recognizes April 29th through May 5th, 2022 as Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Awareness Week, dated this 25th day of April, 2022, and signed Jennifer A. Smith, Mayor of the City of Marquette.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioners, do we have a motion on this proclamation? Commissioner Hill.
I move that we accept this resolution to make the week of April 29th to recognize Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Awareness Week.
Do we have a second? Pro Tem Mayor?
I'll second the motion.
Commissioner Hill, any discussion?
No, I just appreciate that this is coming forward and that there's a lot to learn about this issue, and I know that there's a lot of good online resources. There's also the opportunity to participate. I believe there will be events at NMU with the Native American Studies program.
Pro Tem Mayor?
I won't say too much, just that I am glad that we are voting on this tonight, and that I don't think people realize that this kind of some of the issues around this topic, and I encourage everyone to research this more and look more into the educational information that you can find on it. These events happen here in the UP as well. You know, I grew up in the Sioux, and we had a tribal reservation there, and I can picture billboards right now of women that have just gone missing from the tribe. And there was no really formal investigation. No one was ever arrested for it. And this kind of stuff happens in the UP. We have 5 tribes here in the UP, and I just wanted to make sure people understood that.
Any other commissioners? I just wanted to thank Pro Tem Cody Mayer for bringing this issue forward for a proclamation, because I do think it's important and critical to recognize, to raise awareness on the issue. So thank you. All right, commissioners, let's go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, up next we have what was previously 3F, proclamation 25th anniversary of Marquette Symphony Orchestra. City Clerk, could you please read the proclamation?
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas the Marquette Symphony Orchestra is celebrating 25 years as a musical organization offering concerts in the genres of classical, pops, newly commissioned works, old favorites, concerti, symphonies, tone poems, and more to the residents of Marquette and the Upper Peninsula. And whereas the mission of the Marquette Symphony Orchestra is to create, provide, and promote professional performances of orchestral music through collaboration with residents and music educators of the Central Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And whereas the Symphony Orchestra is a keystone of Marquette's vibrant cultural life that makes it a mecca for area art lovers and helps fuel the area's tourist industry. And whereas the City of Marquette would like to recognize the contributions of the Marquette Symphony Orchestra to the community, now, therefore, I, Jennifer A. Smith, Mayor of the City of Marquette, do hereby recognize the 25th anniversary of the Marquette Symphony Orchestra and officially acknowledge their contributions to the Marquette community. Dated this 25th day of April, 2022, and signed Jennifer A. Smith, Mayor of the City of Marquette.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioners, do we have a motion on this proclamation? Commissioner Bonzel?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we recognize the 25th anniversary of the Marquette Symphony Orchestra and officially acknowledge their contributions to the Marquette community and by authorizing the mayor to sign the proclamation as presented.
And do we have a second? Commissioner Stonehouse?
I certainly second that motion, Your Honor.
Any discussion? Commissioner Bonzel?
I just think that Marquette is so fortunate to have an asset, a community asset like the MSO. And they've provided so many incredible opportunities to the community and to community members and local musicians for the past quarter of a century. And I hope that they have 25 more successful years and many years beyond that in the community, and really appreciate everything that they and really our entire broader, vibrant musical community bring to Marquette.
Commissioner Stonehouse, any discussion?
I can only say, Your Honor, that they are an absolutely terrific group, that what they do is remarkable, the performances are stellar, and they certainly speak very strongly, I think, for the work ethos, as well as the spirit, if you will, of the City of Marquette. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Okay, let's go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Up next on new business, we have the fire truck purchase, which is now item 6. City Clerk, background, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The fire department currently utilizes two 2004 Pierce Arrow XT fire trucks during daily operations. Both trucks have exceeded the average useful life of 15 years and are experiencing frame corrosion issues. The trucks have been included in the motor pool capital outlay replacement schedule and were scheduled to be replaced in the 2023-24 and 2024-25 fiscal years. However, due to upcoming price increases, long expected lead times, and American Rescue Plan Act funding availability, staff recommends purchasing one truck now. Motor Pool and Fire Department staff have been working with Red Power Diesel Service, the regional dealer for Pierce Manufacturing, over the past 12 months to spec a truck that will meet the city's needs moving into the future. Pierce Manufacturing operates out of Appleton, Wisconsin, and is the manufacturer of our current firefighting vehicles. Red Power has provided pricing via the Sourcewell Purchasing Program, a national public service agency that provides cooperative purchasing assistance for state and municipal entities at a cost not to exceed $829,080.61. There is an estimated lead time of 22 months if the purchase is made before May 1st, 2022. The price includes a discount of $39,619.85 for paying at the time of order. As an alternative, a payment can be made at the time of delivery for a total purchase cost of $868,700.46. Fiscal effect. Funds from the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 will be used to cover this purchase. Recommendation, approve the purchase of a new Pierce Velocity PUC pumper truck from Red Power Diesel Service, Inc. of Fremont, Wisconsin, in an amount not to exceed $829,080.61, paid at the time of order. Alternatives, approve the purchase of a new Pierce Velocity PUC pumper truck from Red Power Diesel Service, Inc. of Fremont, Wisconsin, in an amount not to exceed $868,700.46, paid at the time of delivery. Other alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioners, do we have a motion before we get into any discussion? Commissioner Hanley.
I motion that we approve the purchase of a new Pierce Velocity PUC pumper truck from Red Power Diesel Service, Inc. of Fremont, Wisconsin, in an amount not to exceed $829,080.61, paid at the time of order.
And do we have a second on that motion on the floor? Commissioner Bonzel?
I'll second that motion, Your Honor.
Or Hanley, any discussion? Want to start us off?
I would love to start us off. I do have quite a bit, and I don't know if Ian can come up so I can ask him questions directly.
We can have Chief Davis come
Oh,
up.
sorry, Chief Davis.
Well, as long as he's willing.
As long as you're willing, sorry. I just think that most of my questions you would be the best to answer. So I will state up front that I'm completely for this purchase. We saw the truck today. We see the disrepair that it's in. I completely believe that we need a new truck. However, for the new fire truck, is there a way to help extend the lifespan of it by, I know that we respond with our main fire trucks to every single medical call. And I know that the amount of mileage that puts and wear and tear on the vehicles and the expense of the gas, along with everything else, must be much exceeding. First question, how many medical calls versus fire calls do we average in a year?
Right now, we're at about 1,700 medical calls and a total of 2,200 calls in total. We do use an echo unit for medicals, which is basically a Suburban. And any one truck responses, they respond just with that vehicle, and that has reduced the wear and tear on the trucks because we aren't running them on every medical call.
So we do run the smaller truck regularly. I feel like I constantly see the big fire truck out. Is there
Yeah, it all depends on staffing. We have a 6-man minimum staffing and a total of 8. And we can only run the echo unit when we have 7 or 8 on duty. So if we're down to minimum staffing, we have to run the fire trucks because they have to be available for other calls. So it's not every day that we're running the echo unit to take that wear and tear off the trucks.
Okay. Now, is there an average of, do we know how often we're at minimum staffing versus the staffing to use echo unit? Is it regularly we're at minimum, or is it?
It's hard to say. It obviously day to day it changes. Right now, we're looking at by June being down 3 positions, depending on when we can fill them. When we're down, we are on minimum staffing constantly. So it really depends on our staffing level. I can look back over the last year, and I can get you guys numbers on the percentage of the time that we're running it, if that'll work.
No, and the numbers aren't quite necessary now. Maybe the next thing would be is there a way that we can work towards making sure we can use the echo unit more often than we are now?
Not without increasing staffing.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if I have any other questions about that at all. Besides, I don't know if Karen can fill in with anything.
One thing that'll probably be brought up during budget discussions will be the cost per hour per vehicle. And I think there is a favor to, good reason to use the echo unit versus the fire truck. And I believe that Chief Davis will be talking about that during budget as well. The cost per hour right now, if we were to charge the hourly rate on our vehicles, it would be about $190 an hour for the fire truck and about $18 an hour for the echo unit. Now, there are only certain instances where the echo unit can be used, and obviously, as Chief Davis had mentioned, staffing is the real true issue with that. But we will be talking about how we can really use the echo unit more than the fire truck. So that is something, future discussions in which will be further elaborated during budget, I believe. But now is a good time to pitch the fact that we are searching for new firefighters, and it is a recruitment effort that cannot be handled overnight.
Absolutely. Jumping off of that then, how long has it been practiced for fire department to respond to every call along with the ambulance?
Approximately 8 years. 7, 8 years.
And this is just actual questioning, like, do we make any money off of going on these calls as the city?
We don't bill, no.
Okay.
The only time that we're set up to bill for any medical services is whenever we do what's called a ALS intercept with Marquette Township's ambulance.
Okay.
And that's just starting right now.
Okay, and I understand that it's quicker response times to get to medical calls is probably the reason that the fire department does this as well. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to, besides with Marquette Township, recoup some of the cost if we're going to just to point out like a slip and fall or help getting standing up? If we're going to the same house 78 times in a year, is there something we can do in that scenario? or in any scenario where we're being called out constantly. It's not that I don't think the fire department should respond. I absolutely, I'm a first responder myself. I do understand the need for it. I just want to look to make sure that we're making fiscally responsible decisions as well. If it's costing us fire trucks that cost $1 million at a much faster rate, there's something that we have to change in some way.
Yeah, that's something that can obviously be discussed going forward.
Perfect. Thank you.
See if there's a way to do that.
And I'm trying to remember who made the second. Was it Commissioner Hill?
No, was that?
Thank you. Sorry. Commissioner Bonzo, in the discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And Ian, thanks for being willing to answer some questions. I was curious if you could, first of all, just speak to, our current trucks were purchased in 2004, I believe, correct?
Right.
So if you could just speak to the expected lifespan of those vehicles at the time they were purchased, and then just kind of where we're at now in terms of the condition of the vehicles, the failure risk, the critical failure risk, the annual maintenance costs, things of that nature.
Yeah. The original lifespan of those trucks was supposed to be 15 years. So obviously we're quite a ways out from that already. Both of the trucks, but especially our 2054 unit, the frames on both of them are excessively corroded just because of where we're at and the salt on the roads. As you saw today during the work session on just one of the trucks, there are some areas that are critically corroded to the point where I'm hoping that even with purchasing the truck now, because it's going to be 22 to 24 months to receive it, we're hoping we can keep them on the road for that amount of time. It obviously affects all parts of the truck, not just the frame. We are looking at rust in compartments and all over the bottom of them, just like you would any vehicle up here. But they are significantly outside of their useful service life.
Great. And I mean, what would be the sum that we would spend maintaining just this one truck that we're looking at replacing each year at this point, and over the next few years, before, or the next couple of years before it's replaced? I mean, how do you expect those maintenance costs to change?
In the condition they're in now, one of the trucks runs about $30,000 a year for maintenance and upkeep.
Yeah, and I'm sure that that'll just continue to increase as the next couple of years go on. I mean, I just want to underline for the public, as Chief Davis said, we had a work session over at the motor pool and had an opportunity to take a real close look at these trucks. And I think in the background for this item, it says frame corrosion issues. I mean, that's a big understatement. It certainly is. It was a shock to me, the condition that the vehicle was in. I am just curious if you could speak to, kind of getting maybe back to Commissioner Hanley's question, what can we expect the lifetime of this new vehicle to be if we do move forward with this purchase, and what are some ways we could maximize that moving forward?
I do think once you get into the particulars of the new trucks, possibly Eric might be the better person to answer that. I do know that we're looking at galvanized frames, which will extend their service life. Beyond that, on what they can do in the motor pool, that's a little outside of my wheelhouse.
Eric's coming to back up.
So the galvanized frame that has a 25-year warranty from the manufacturer, with proper upkeep with everything else, we're probably gonna have to do some pump rebuilds, and I'm sure some engine rebuilds over the course of life, but we could possibly get 20 to 25 years out of it.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate that. I don't think I have anything else. Other than that, I do tend to think, as much as it maybe hurts a little bit, we have ARPA money available. I'd like to be able to save $40,000 by paying at the time of order, and certainly save, I think the number during the work session was maybe mentioned anywhere from $100,000 to $150,000 in addition to that, by buying it now as opposed to later. But it seems like it makes fiscal sense. And then as a commissioner, as someone that our first and foremost responsibility is to look out for the safety of the public, I certainly think that it's scary to me thinking about the fact that we seem to have a very high risk of a critical failure at any given time we take this truck out. And I really don't. I don't like to think about some of the things that could happen if that were to take place.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Hill?
Thank you, and thank you to the staff. This is a finance question. So how would this money be allocated over time? I heard that we would pay on delivery. That means we would pay 24 months from now. Could you just please walk us through how the money would actually work in this situation?
Yeah, actually, so originally we had thought that it would be pay on delivery, but we have this option, an opportunity to save close to $40,000 by paying upfront instead of on delivery. So because of the timing of our ARPA funding and that first distribution, it actually works out pretty nicely that we will be able to use that now instead of waiting for 24 months.
And how much ARPA funding are we designating to this again?
I have CFO over there. It has exact numbers if you.
Yeah, we'll currently have about 1.7 million available. We have $1.8 million available right now.
So we're going to spend the rest of the ARPA money on the fire truck?
We would be spending just the 800,000 or 860 on the fire truck, which would leave us about 1 million left over. Would be nice.
So just for the public to segue a little bit, we spent $1 million of the ARPA money. We had $2 million in ARPA money. $1 million was spent to just pay down debt, correct? No.
Not allowable. When we received the ARPA money, we're still waiting from the federal government to know how we would be allowed to spend those funds. There was an interim rule that we had to follow, which we had used $370,000 to purchase the Lakeshore property last fiscal year. So that's where we have this remaining 1.8 million that we're still trying to determine how we want to allocate it. But we cannot use that for a debt service. Can't use it for pension funds, can't use it for ongoing services. These one-off equipment purchases are the cleanest way to use them.
We had originally thought we would be using it for revenue loss. However, because of the changes in the ruling and some of the needs that we have, we were able to find and identify some of these specifics. I believe the rest of it will be discussed during budget.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That was off topic, but very pertinent to this question of how we designate these funds. So back to my original question in terms of so it would all come out of this fiscal year. We would just be taking all of it out of this fiscal year, and then we'd have this asset sitting on the books, waiting to arrive. Is that basically what's gonna happen?
So we would put it in a prepaid account, basically, and then the revenue would be unearned until we have the receipt of the vehicle. So it's all going to be on the balance sheet. Nothing would end up hitting the income statement, the revenue expenditure report, until the receipt.
Okay. And so I'm asking because then it's not a loss or a positive that's sitting out there that doesn't. So in terms of the critical questions of are we owing money to anyone and what our debt is looking like, because we keep talking about how we are potentially in a negative situation, and we're making this big investment. I just wanted to be really crystal clear to ourselves and to the public about how this money is flowing. It does sound like an important opportunity, and but I don't want also at the same time the opportunity to have this money come to us to allow us to do big transformative projects. And in paying these things down, my understanding is our goal is to have more funds available in the future for us to make investments. Is that correct?
Nice way of putting it. In some ways, yes, that is correct.
Because that, I think, is very important, that we that we hold back something for us to make that purchase for the future while we're still meeting critical safety needs. Thank you.
Any other, oh, sorry. Go
Can
ahead,
I
Karen.
just help maybe clarify
Absolutely.
that just a little bit? So if we were not able to use ARPA funding, obviously, we may not be, maybe we wouldn't be making the recommendation to purchase now, but we would be essentially using other funds through the motor pool fund to purchase this. So yes, while you're saying we are using these funds, it frees up future dollars for some of the larger projects perhaps, or other things that we would need. If that helps clarify a little bit.
Flexibility.
Flexibility, perfect, thank you.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Stonehouse?
Well, Your Honor, I'm having real trouble supporting this proposal. And I think other commissioners may be thinking along the same lines too. It's hard to say we don't need the fire truck because obviously the fire truck is in difficult mechanical condition. And certainly we should do our due diligence by doing the best investment we can now in terms of purchasing with the price reductions, et cetera. But we also have the big gorilla in the room, which is the $2 million deficit that we have for the coming budget. And we do have $1.8, $1.7 million of ARPA money available that can partially plug that hole. And if we use the ARPA money to buy a fire truck, we don't have anything to help plug that hole. And that then circles back to the discussion we had previously about increasing the millage by 2 and a piece, which is not a vote I think any of us would really want to take, or any particular payment that our citizens would like to make either. So that comes down to the crux of the situation, I think, less than buying a new fire truck, is saying, can we afford to buy a new fire truck at the expense of having funding available to help pay off or pay for city expenses through the coming year, that $2 million deficit? And that's really the decision that we have to make. My opinion. Thank you.
Commissioner Hill?
Can I ask the commissioner a question? Sure. Are you saying that in not buying the fire truck, we're not going to have to increase the millage?
No, not at all.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that the real evaluation, the real status of the fire truck, a hard decision has to be made. Can we afford to replace it, knowing that it's going to cost us this opportunity to partially fill the debt we have? Or is it better off to try and nurse the fire truck along for a few more years with the expectation that we will begin to see other opportunities for funding? That's the crux of the problem.
And
we need the fire truck? Yes, we do. Do we need to cover the debt hole? Yes, we do.
And I want to make sure other commissioners have a chance to talk before we get into further back and forth here.
Just clarification to the city manager, because I heard that we were not going to be using the money for revenue loss, or that's an option on the table. I'm just clarifying that it's even an option. That wasn't clear to me.
Using it for revenue loss is an option. However, we would still have to find a way to then fund a fire truck. We start coming into more costly repairs, or repairs that can't even be made anymore. And the big risk would then be, what do we do when we're down a fire truck due to a irreparable issue on a truck? So it's a cost risk analysis here, and that's what we have done.
Other commissioners who haven't had a chance to speak yet? Pro-Tem Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Looking at this, I'm just thinking about the fact that even if we ordered this now, we're going to have to keep the current truck running for another 22 months. Is that right? And I mean, I was under the truck looking at the frame, and the fact that I could scrape off part of the frame with just my finger without trying, because it's there's one part of it specifically, it's just so decayed that I don't know how they can keep replacing it again and again and again. I believe, I don't know if our fire chief's still in here, it was at about 200 times a month is the average the truck goes out? That concerns me, just thinking about the amount of times that this truck's going to keep going out. We're going to still have crews on this, knowing that that could be a fatal fault on that vehicle at some point on any of those runs. That terrifies me a little bit. I completely understand Commissioner Stonehouse's thoughts. I'm not sure if we wait, another year or two, then we're talking maybe possibly 4 years until we get a new fire truck. And I don't know if we can keep it maintained that long. I do have a question about the possible new truck. I heard you mention several times about the galvanized steel. So on this current truck, when there's been issues, you've been able to weld and replace parts. Correct me if I'm wrong, you cannot weld galvanized steel, right? It creates a toxic gas.
You can weld on galvanized, but you really shouldn't have to. I mean, and it wasn't by any means of not taking care of it. It's just it was a plain steel frame with an aluminum body on top. If you've ever seen those trucks go together, they're all aluminum cabs. The whole back end's all aluminum on top. Anywhere aluminum touches steel, you have a galvanic corrosion issue, kind of like on the principle of batteries, and it's just going to constantly eat away. And that galvanizing, all that does is like a sacrificial anode, and that protects the frame. So, ideally, we shouldn't have to weld on it. I mean, if anything, they're not even really coating those. They're better off just leaving them just galvanized. They found that over time through experimentation that by actually coating the frame after it's been, or when it's coating a galvanized frame is actually worse for it, because then you could get water up underneath the coating. So we could weld on it if something broke, but you're not going to see the kind of corrosion issues that we're experiencing now. And that's really no fault of the manufacturer. It's just they discovered that over time, that as things changed, that they had an issue, and they improved their process.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just thinking who hasn't, you have had a chance? I thought you did, and I'm having trouble tracking.
Sal is the only one.
Commissioner Davis, do we have any discussion? Okay. I think this is tough, right? This is a tough ask because of the price point, but I think it was important to go over and see the condition of the vehicle and to know that there's another one in short order that we're gonna need. So in my mind, I mean, there's a few options, right? One, we approve this as presented, which is what I think I would like to support at this point, but I'm certainly open to hearing any further discussion there might be. Two, we approve with some adjustments, if that's something commissioners are interested in doing. I heard one scenario was maybe paying for it at the end rather than at the beginning, but I do see a unique opportunity with the ARPA funding right now. So at this point, I'm leaning towards approving as presented. Or three, and this is not something I've heard anyone say, and I'm not for it, but it'd be reducing services. And I don't think that's something that I haven't heard that through this whole process. It doesn't seem like something that staff is interested in, the commission is interested in. I don't know that the public would be interested in that. So to me, that's a non-option, but it's something that at least you say that we're willing to probably sacrifice some of the other more difficult considerations to keep services in the city of Marquette, is what I keep hearing. How we get there is probably the task at hand. So additionally, I just wanted to say that at the work session, I did talk with Chief Davis and our CFO and our city manager a little bit. We are going to have to replace a second fire truck in short order here. And it's possible that there may be a discount to order both at once. Obviously, that's even more expensive, even more difficult. That's not something that I'm proposing we vote on tonight, but I just want to, have the public be aware that we may be looking at this again in short order, or maybe a few years before we look at it again. But we're certainly exploring every chance we have for some kind of discount if it's available to us. I just wanted to add that, and then I guess if other commissioners have additional comments, happy to entertain that. I saw Commissioner Bonzo's hand first, and then I'll go to Pro Tem Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you to Commissioner Stonehouse for raising, your concerns and viewpoints, because honestly, I was thinking along similar lines initially on this. Is there some way we can extend the service life of this vehicle by even a couple of years? Can we kind of limp along? I think you're right, Madam Mayor, that I don't think anybody proposed, making, cuts to the kind of services the fire department's able to provide. I think it's pretty clear they're kind of stretched their limit as they are. But I mean, I think after the work session today, a couple of things became much clearer, and we got some data and some hard information that kind of shifted my thinking. I mean, just seeing the level of corrosion on the vehicle, as well as seeing some of the statistics and the visual examples of how corroded the frame is on the vehicle, how high the risk of a critical failure is, and also all the logistical challenges and financial challenges that come along with even not a critical failure of the frame or something like that, but just the increasing maintenance costs, and also, maintenance costs not only money but also time. So we have to bring our ladder truck out and have that, basically be doing a job that it's not ideally suited for whenever one of our current vehicles is out of commission, being maintained and repaired, and we don't have the same capability that you might have in a larger urban area to lean on a neighboring department, because the departments near us are even smaller than we are stretched even thinner than we are, and it's not a true apples to apples comparison, because they don't have the same equipment, personnel, certifications, and capabilities that we have. So even putting one of our trucks out of commission for several months to do some major maintenance overhaul or life extension, even if it would save some money, I'm not sure that it would be the responsible thing to do from a public safety standpoint. And it's not clear to me that it would actually save a substantial amount of money given the condition of the vehicle. So that's why I have kind of come around, I would say, to being more in favor of the idea of doing this now and paying at the time of order, as the motion proposes. But I'm open to other ideas as well, but that's just where I'm at on this one at this point.
Pro Tem Mayor, now you had your hand raised.
So here's a question. Say we get this new truck. What is the plan with the old one? Can we more or less have the one that we're maybe getting in a few years kind of consume it for scrap to keep it going?
If it was for like a pump or some other things, yeah, we could. But with the frame issues, it's evident on both of them. We're having issues on both, and really the value of that truck, from what we see going elsewhere, they're only going for $10,000 to $20,000 used, because a municipality isn't going to buy that knowing that there's issues. It's going to be a collector or somebody, a private individual most likely. There's really not a ton of value in it. We would probably keep it a little while, until we could figure out and make a plan moving forward, but still with the frame being the weak point, we're not going to swap frames.
Okay. But seeing as how the resale on it is rather insignificant compared to what a new one would be, you could probably salvage parts
I
off
think
of
we
it
would
to keep the other one going.
I would recommend we would do that before we would just sell it outright. It'd be better, more useful to us to part it out.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Hill?
And sort of related, you might not want to sit down, Eric, is seeing that benefit of the decreased maintenance cost. I mean, $30,000 for this truck. How much is the maintenance on the other truck right now? Do you have that number?
They're pretty close. I don't have that exact number in front of me, but they are pretty close. This particular truck hasn't had a pump rebuild. That's about $10,000. So if the pump goes, that would require a rebuild. The trainee's already been replaced once in it. That was about $12,000 a number of years ago. I hate to see what it is now if we can even get one. And there's a lot of blow-by in the engine. It's getting a little weak, so that would need an overhaul too. So, I mean, we're just going to try to limp it along best we can without sticking a bunch of money into it.
So if so it's, the maintenance costs are 4% roughly the price of a new one, roughly. Which doesn't seem, I'm just hoping that when we have these new machines, we actually see to, a way to actually start to hold money for the next one, or some way of actually making sure that there's cash available. This whole practice of buying two at the same time does make me really nervous. I'd rather have two coming in at two different times, right? I mean, would that be your preference? Is there any story to why we got two in the first place in 2004?
I believe they did get a discount when they bought those back in '04, and they bought them back-to-back fiscal years. And then we did do some checking just after we met all today, just to see what discount there would be available for two, and there isn't one now, just because of where things are at with the market. So if we bought another one, it'd cost us the same exact amount. Preferably, those should be staggered at least, 10 years probably apart.
Yeah, that's, I'm glad to hear that was my perception, but that's good to
Yeah,
hear.
the boat that we're in was just, that's the hand we were given.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner discussion before we take a vote? Karen, did you have something you wanted to add? Thought I saw your hand go up.
I just wanted to make sure that it's clear that the reason that these have lasted so long really is obviously the quality of the manufacturer, but also the crew that has been maintaining these and has been able to get under these trucks more frequently than anywhere that I've ever seen or ever been. And just their skill set to make these repairs and to keep them going. So I really want to give a lot of credit to DPW and to Motor Pool specifically on how we can keep these lasting. So I'm sure that they're going to have the same level of care and attention to detail in these new trucks as well.
All right, let's go ahead and take a vote. City Clerk, do you mind to reread the motion? Was it just the recommended motion to approve?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to state that to make sure. All right, let's go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes 6-1. Did I get that right? Just making sure. All right. Last up on new business, we have item number 7, residential curbside recycling cart grant. City Clerk, could we have the background, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The city recently applied for and has been awarded 2 complimentary grants: the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, EAGLE Recycling Infrastructure Grant, and the Recycling Partnership Residential Curbside Recycling Cart Grant. The City Commission approved the submission of these grants and authorized a letter of support at the September 27, 2021 regular meeting. These grants provide the opportunity to enhance curbside collection of recyclables through the implementation of recycling carts at no cost to city residents. Project includes universal automatic distribution of carts, which automatically provides a recycling cart to every residential household that is eligible for garbage service. In order for the city to receive the maximum grant amount, each house will need to utilize carts for recycling. The total budget for the project is $355,200, which includes $344,000 for the acquisition, assembly, and distribution of RFID-enabled carts, and $11,200 for education and outreach. The EAGLE Recycling Infrastructure Grant and the Recycling Partnership Residential Recycling Cart Grant will provide $251,000 and $93,000 for the carts, respectively. The Recycling Partnership Residential Recycling Cart Grant will also provide $6,200 for education and outreach, and the remaining $5,000 in the education budget will come from the existing City Solid Waste Fund budget. Grant proceeds are paid on a reimbursement basis, meaning the grantees must make the initial purchases. The grant stipulates that the carts must be provided at no cost to residents other than standard solid waste or recycling service taxes or fees. Increased recycling cart distribution has shown to increase the quality and quantity of recycling and vastly increase recycling participation in general. The carts eliminate litter issues stemming from open-top recycling containers and create greater efficiencies for collection. If approved, cart distribution will be scheduled for the fall. Fiscal effect, none. The recycling expansion will be reimbursed by grant proceeds. Recommendation, accept the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy Recycling Infrastructure Grant and the Recycling Partnership Residential Curbside Recycling Cart Grant, and authorize the city manager or her designee to sign the grant agreements. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioners, we have a motion on this item. Commissioner Hanley?
I motion that we accept the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy Recycling Infrastructure Grant and the Recycling Partnership Residential Curbside Recycling Cart Grant, and authorize the city manager or her designee to sign the grant agreements.
And do we have a second? Commissioner Hill?
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Hanley, any discussion?
Yes. I remember looking at this, and I believe all of the commissioners have had people reach out to them about what problems they think these recycling carts would cause. I am on the side of for the carts. I think we need to increase recycling if we are going to stand here and say we are moving forward in environmental practices in Marquette. We need to be pushing for them regularly. I think this is one large step in doing so. I also stand on the fact that I think that we should have all trash bins as well, not the bags or the tag service. I know that right now the bags are impossible to find, so we're moving to the sticker service, which is holding over, but is it something good? Plus, when the bags are there, the amount of plastic being used is amazing. Most people take 3 regular garbage bags and put them into one of these large garbage bags, which is plastic on plastic, which is something we're trying to get away from, I believe, as a city. I think by putting all bins out there, which I know is not on the table today, I would like to state that I just want to make it known that I think we should be sticking to one system. Instead of having bags and carts, if we're going to have carts, we should just have carts. I think that the option for people, if they didn't want carts, could be something like you could take your garbage to waste management yourself and just show them your city utility bill, and you could drop it off free of charge if for some reason you couldn't have the bin for a legitimate reason. But I think that this recycling grant is amazing, that we are getting these carts paid for by, that we won't have to pay anything as the city, and we're encouraging recycling in our city and making it easier. We'll have less garbage blowing around, or recycling blowing around the streets when it's a windy night and people have open top containers, which is a regular thing that I see in the summer and the winter. And in the winter, it sits under snow for days, and then it becomes useless to people. You can't recycle with it. So I would like to say that I'm all for these recycling bins, and I'm all for a discussion when our contract ends with Waste Management on moving to a simple bin program and no longer having bags or tags.
Thank you. Commissioner Hill, any discussion?
Thank you. I want to thank the staff for working on getting this grant to come to us. $300,000 is a good chunk, and I really appreciate the work that they've done as we have gone through all these different permutations over the years of trying to figure out how to make this happen. I will also say that I do, having had the chance to think about this now for several months as we applied and then received the funds, I don't have a lot of room at my house to put one of those big carts. We don't have a big household, but I can say this windy night the other night was my night for trash, when it was that really, really windy night, and I didn't put my recycling out because I knew it would just blow all over the streets. I have a pretty good sized solid tote, but you have to worry about the wind. So I didn't. So now I've got it in my garage. And so I've kind of, basically what I'm saying is I've come around to the idea that these carts, as Commissioner Hanley said, are something that can really benefit us. Will it take some creative positioning? Yes, or maybe figuring out some way to actually get them to hold down, because it's still, if you have to put them on the outside of their house, they're going to blow. We're going to have to figure out something. But I think the goals that it would meet in terms of, we've heard from Waste Management that it's a worker safety issue, and that it would make it easier and quicker potentially for them to pick up the trash. We'd have less things blowing around. There'd be more consistency. I have appreciated the time that we've had to think about this, and I think it is a good thing to do.
Any other commissioners? Part-time Mayor?
Thank you, Your Honor. I have a few questions here for staff. Have we determined exactly how the grant program would work with like apartment buildings or duplexes? Just off my memory, this is going to be based off the total percentage use of the community, and how that factors into this.
So at this point, the program works. Each individual residency will be receiving a cart. So if it's a fourplex, there would be 4 carts. We cannot just simply assume that those that live in one unit will recycle less or have less waste. So at this point, the program is going to be rolled out as each individual unit receives one. Now, if there's other discussions for very specific instances, we will obviously be having to take into consideration very unique circumstances, but that is essentially the way that is intended to be rolled out.
Okay, thank you. And just clarifying, the size of the cart is the 96-gallon carts, right?
We can have up to a 96-gallon, but the intent is to have 64-gallon.
Okay, thank you. And for the city is essentially paying for this up front, and we're getting reimbursed based off the cart usage, right?
Yes.
So what happens if, let's say, 30% of the city just doesn't want a cart?
Well, then that would be a fiscal impact to us. So that is not about, unfortunately, the program is going to be every unit receives one. There's not going to be an option available to refuse a cart unless there's very specific instances that obviously we will be working through.
Okay, thank you.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Stonehill?
Your Honor, I think this is my night to be the no vote. But this is Orwellian. There's things that government should do and does do. Government has requirements all of the time that are quite reasonable and legitimate. We provide police and fire services. We have regulations we follow to make sure those are proper services. We collect taxes. We do these things that we have to do because we drive the system down for the benefit of everybody. But something like this program does not do that. For example, I don't want a cart. I don't need a cart. I have nowhere to put a cart. But the government's going to give me a cart. They've just wasted a cart on somebody who's not going to use it. Now, I don't want it for a couple of reasons. One of them is it doesn't fit anywhere. I've got to have a place to put it. And I refuse to put it out in front of my house. I think most people don't want a garbage cart sitting out in front of their house. So I'm just going to, I assume, take it to the dump because I've got to have this thing, get rid of it at recycle time, I guess. So what does that do for my opportunity to recycle? They're not going to pick up my material because I don't have the proper cart. So my recycle was going to have to go into the general trash. Now that defeats the purpose of the whole cart program because I'm not recycling that, I'm throwing it away. I'm throwing it away because I have no other ready, easily acceptable option. All the things that you wanted the cart to do and the cart can do doesn't work for a lot of people. And I think that is going to be a huge problem, particularly when we have folks that might be living alone. It's a widower. She's having difficulty with mobility, and now she's got to drag another cart out, as well as this great big garbage thing we've given her. That's just really not right. The people who benefit from this program essentially is waste management. I think they're currently running 2 people on a truck, and one of them is to toss the cart. By having this, they automate, they go down to 1 person on a truck. That's 1 more person without a job. So we have just taken 1 person out of good, productive work, and they no longer do that because we have automated the picking up of recycles, a process that we don't need even to do. So again, my vote will be no, that I don't think this is a right and proper thing for government to be forcing on its citizens. Thank you for your time.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Davis?
First, let me say that I really like the carts, and I think we really need to do something to improve our recycling. The part that I'm struggling with is what Commissioner Stonehouse is talking about is choice. And it sounds like the residents do not have choice. And yeah, you're going to correct me, I hope?
The choice would be then you do have the option, just as you do right now, to take your recycling to the transfer station, and as long as you have your your driver's license to show that you have you live in the city. Then
Thank
can
you,
take
because
it.
I was hearing
Yes.
something different. So that people will have a choice to decline the carts and can still recycle by taking it to waste management.
There's not necessarily the option to decline. you still have to, we're asking for residents to give this a try. We really are. To take this on, to accept the cart, you know, and I know that's a tough, that's a tough one to say, please accept the cart, but to use the cart, try it out. And if you do not want to use the cart, then you can you can drive your recycling to the transfer station if that is easier. Now, the goal is, and I don't want to interrupt your question.
So if a resident chooses not to use a cart, but we give them a cart anyway, and that particular resident does not like using it, now what do they do with it?
That is,
now we're going to have to pick it up?
That would be something we would have to discuss internally, and those are some of those specifics that we have yet to define, but would have to consult with the grant agreement as well, because that can't obviously be an option, because the goal is to get people to recycle by using these carts.
Okay, so in the background, it talks about in order for the city to receive maximum grant amount, each house will need to utilize carts for recycling. What if we don't want the maximum? Do we have an option to have 80% of the grant?
Then that would be something we would have to look into for the grant agreement. I'm not entirely sure if that's an option. We risk that. We do. If that is, I'm just going to use a potential example or devil's advocate here for a second. If we have material that goes out, you know, like an order form to our residents, and there is an option to opt out, we risk losing this grant.
But what we don't know is if we risk losing it 100% or a percentage of.
The greater goal is to
know.
have this. And this is best management
I
practice.
understand it. As I said, I like the carts. And I do feel that we need to improve our recycling. But I still do have this problem with choice. I guess the only other thing I would make sure that people know is that they can still, if they choose not to have a cart, they still can recycle. It's just going to take a little bit more effort it won't be curbside.
Yes.
And then the other thing that oftentimes we don't think about is that you don't have to put out your recycle cart every week. You can wait until it's full, and maybe it takes you 3 weeks to fill that cart.
You've got it.
So I guess I join Commissioner Stonehouse in struggling with the community choice of this. But otherwise, I'm supportive of it. I'm still struggling.
I know we have more commission to get through, but Assistant City Manager Sean Hobbins had something to add.
Yeah, Commissioner Davis and Stonehouse, if I can offer, in terms of choice, the city already requires residents to use the garbage collection service of Waste Management, so they don't necessarily have a choice when it comes to their city collection service regardless. You know, we're talking about the, you know, individual like minutia of like how it's collected, but we are requiring them already to use this one service.
Okay,
So
good point. Thank you.
Wanted that to be pointed out.
Commissioner Bonzo?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I suppose I'm probably similar to Commissioner Davis in that I like the carts. I think we should be expanding the use of the carts, and I actually think that the idea of some kind of universal recycling cart program or requirement is a fine one in principle, and I really appreciate the efforts that staff have made to provide us with this opportunity, which would have very little financial impact on the city and potentially have significant benefits. But I do have some concerns and some questions. So in doing some research into this, I was trying to find other communities in like the upper Midwest that had similar universal recycling cart requirements or programs. And I looked at like 14 or 15 different cities and townships of different sizes in like Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. And generally, it seems that the communities that require the 64-gallon carts, usually they're actually collecting recyclables less frequently than we are. So like maybe every 2 weeks or once a month. I also generally they have different options for cart sizes. So like a smaller cart size, and also have a like 24-hour remote drop-off site for all single stream recyclables. I think that while the waste management transfer station is an option for some, I am not sure how practical it is for many city residents, given that it's only open Monday through Friday from like 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., closed during part of the lunch hour, So I struggle a little bit with that, especially, so my first question is, have we considered making some of those alternative options available, like a smaller cart size, or perhaps offering a 24-hour single stream recyclable drop-off site, like we do for glass right now?
So there's, so to address the first question on the options, the best practices limit those options to just one size. There's quite a few issues when we have multiple options for people, and this really truly has been proven to be the select model. And I think about, you're close to half of the examples that were looked at have this, and those are the communities that have just recently received grants. So this is truly within the guidelines of what has been determined as best practice. Your second question on the 24-hour drop-off location, I believe the city has done something similar in the past and has had some issues. The glass recycling is very specific and has been proven to be successful, but when we start looking into the single stream, we start talking about increasing that contamination.
I don't believe we were able to recycle any of the material in those bins when they were available at Waste Management. That's one of the reasons they were pulled, is people were just using them as they would the rubbish site and putting anything in them. And it's much harder to police when it's a mix of materials than if it's just one material, such as glass. And we even get, unacceptable glass materials in our current bin. It's just that the volume of that is smaller, so we're able to still get, usable material. But when we tried having 24-hour recycling access, it was a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks for that information. That's helpful. I also have received, I'm sure other folks in the commission have as well, some concerns about accessibility for city residents with disabilities, as well as for perhaps senior citizens. So I'm curious if we, first of all, if you could speak to whether we have a sort of a, for lack of a better term, an accessibility list for waste management, where they know that they need to go into somebody's backyard or up to the end of their garage, or up to their garage or the end of their driveway or their door or whatever to get their bin, and whether, if such a thing exists, what we expect the impacts of this policy change would be, right? Because we may see, if we require everybody to use a large, cumbersome 64-gallon cart, a significant increase in seniors and people with disabilities wanting to be on that list, which could negate some of the efficiency gains we see from the cart program. If you could just speak to that a little bit.
Certainly. We do offer special accommodations for those that have some of those physical disabilities that cannot, accessibilities and get the carts out. I would essentially encourage the staff to really continue reaching out to those individuals to start with, and then also being proactive and working with the senior center on letting them know that these changes are coming and to hear what their needs are as well. Now, understand we do have, I think about 15% of our population, correct me if I'm wrong, I think those are the last figures I've seen, are the senior population. And so while we cannot just offer it to every single senior right off the bat, we are still anticipating that to increase with this, because as you mentioned, we would have those that used to use just the bags or the single bin, they would now have to wheel out those carts. So we plan to be proactive on those, and that would still be an available accommodation for those that currently use it and that others that may need it now.
Okay, thank you. I just have one final question. I've also heard some concerns from folks who live in a condo association or a homeowners association, which prohibits outdoor storage of trash or recycling containers. And specifically, just to name one specific example, in South Marquette, there's a development that's largely, I think it's basically senior housing, like zero with lot line, kind of like little condos, and they have tiny little garages, tiny little postage stamp lots, and they also aren't allowed to store their refuse containers outside. So I'm just thinking, and then you also add in that accessibility component, like, what are these people supposed to do, right? I mean, this is like 100 to 200 people that live in this little neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. So just to be clear, that the city does not prohibit outdoor storage. It is something that is very specific to condo associations or homeowners associations that choose to have that specific clause in their bylaws. Now, I would encourage us to, and staff, to really reach out to those and proactively have those conversations with those associations to make them aware of this change, and also provide them potential solutions or ideas to address that. They do have, now unfortunately, I hate to sound insensitive, but there is an option to store it in their garage, but there is an accessibility issue that you mentioned. So those are the specific instances where we would have to take those into consideration and start a dialogue on that. But we are under the assumption that there is a possibility to accommodate that within their garages or within their bylaws. But those are very specific instances.
So, are you still?
Oh, I just.
Well, hold on. I just want to make sure, Commissioner Bonzo. You're all set now? I just wasn't sure. You raised your hand, so then I wasn't sure. And I'm really trying to honor what our city attorney had mentioned, where each commissioner has a chance to speak before a commissioner speaks again. So sorry for not calling you right away, but have I missed any other commissioners at this point? Just me. Okay, I have a list. So first and foremost, these carts are not going to get dropped off next week, next month.
No.
They're not just going to get dropped off without any communication. So I just want to, be clear about that, because I think folks may hear about this and have a fear that, when is this showing up? Is it just going to show up on my driveway one day? No. We are in the process of, assuming this goes through, of planning those next steps. And it sounds like maybe a fall implementation is what we were thinking about.
Correct.
So we are, here we go. Assistant City Manager Sean Hobbins with our 64-gallon cart. Thank you. It's helpful to have a display. I don't know if the camera can pan over there or not, but oh, there we go. For the folks watching at home or watching the recording later. So that's how big it is.
Can you stand by it for reference?
No, I'm not going to go stand by it for reference. So anyway, considering the acceptance of this grant is a step in the process. We have a lot of questions to answer, a lot of things to be worked through. One of the things that I was concerned about was accessibility for folks who may have a disability, and I was encouraged at the last presentation by Waste Management, who is our waste hauler, that essentially all someone who is having trouble has to do is either give city staff or Waste Management a call. And if someone has a, and it's trash too, so we're talking recycling tonight, but it's both. Maybe they have it just outside their, kitchen door or just outside their garage, and they can't bring it down to the curb. Waste Management, if it's a special circumstance, will go and get the cart for them. And I just think that's, worth repeating, that they're willing to accommodate those requests, and they just have to be made. They just need to be known. So maybe someone listening isn't necessarily getting that memo, but I would encourage those who are listening to share that memo with maybe some of our more elderly or our folks who have challenges with getting those carts to the curb. So regardless of whether or not this passes, that's good to know for people. So a few things that, my thoughts. I fully support this recycling grant. I think it's good for the environment. I think it could provide a positive move on climate change for the city of Marquette and for our residents, which is exactly in accordance with our strategic plan, with some of our climate plans that we want to do. And to me, there's definitely going to be pushback, and I get that, but it seems like an easy win because we have new and significant funding to take hold of this opportunity, and we don't know if or when this kind of funding will be available again. Related, this was something I was thinking about on last night, Sunday night. I don't know if you guys remember before the roundabouts were installed, how much people didn't like them. How much do we hear complaints about them now? I know we'll hear complaints about the recycling carts, but I feel like if people get used to them, there'll always be some people who don't like them, but I think we'll be surprised by at least some percentage of the population who likes them more than they think they will, as long as they can find a place to store it and get used to it. I know, tough pill to swallow, I get that, but change can be hard, it can be scary, but it's not always bad. I do think it's a safety thing for our waste hauler, which decreases cost. I know we talked about, I heard you, Commissioner Stonehouse, when you say this is a potential cost savings for them, but I think it's also a potential cost savings for us for future contracts, because if they have people getting hurt all the time, going on work comp, I know in HR, my day job, that is expensive. And they came and they presented, and they had a lot of work comp issues because they're lifting trash and recycling up. So the carts reduces the wear and tear on the human capital that's helping us get the trash and the recycling out of our homes and to the landfill. More efficient. I think that maybe the routes will be a little shorter. Maybe we have to deal with the beeping a little less at night. I'm hoping. That's a hope I have. I don't know, but I'm just fingers crossed. Our job is really to make these difficult decisions, and I know this is not an easy one, but I do think that it's high time we embrace this kind of change for recycling here in Marquette. So I know I'm going to get blowback, and I know it's tough. Reach out, call me. I am more than willing to hear your concerns. And as our city manager has said, we're willing to work through all the questions and concerns. This is not a snap decision. No cart will show up at your house tomorrow. There's no recycling cart ferry that's going to do that, but it will be a long and thoughtful process to make sure that we answer the questions that have come up tonight and will continue to come up. So send us questions, send us concerns. Okay, that's all I had. I know we have other commissioners that wanted to speak. Commissioner Davis, did you still have some thoughts?
I guess just a comment. When we first talked about this as we were approving the application, I think several of us got complaints from people that didn't want the carts. And primarily it's because they don't have room for them. And there is potential, I think it is going to be a difficult implementation, and it will need a lot of education and tolerance and care. Our city managers over there going, yes, we will. But I do have some concerns about them being Marquette's lawn ornaments, and because people don't have a place to put them. And I don't want them to become the city's lawn ornaments. And so that's where my concern is in terms of the choice and the look of the city as we go through that. But absolutely, I feel that we do need to move forward and improve our recycling. And I think I'm going to support the carts.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Stonehouse?
Two comments, Your Honor. If maybe the staff can answer this. If we were to turn the grant back, could we use the money to help pay for the fire truck?
So there is no matching component that the city is paying for. So no, it cannot go for a fire truck. It's actually going for the infrastructure only. It cannot even go to personnel time.
I was hoping. I was hopeful.
I like where you're thinking.
But I will circle back to a comment, Your Honor, that I found a little bit interesting, and that was that the city would be willing to go into somebody's garage and find room to put these carts. And I find that to be highly intrusive, and exactly the type of thing I was talking about with the role of government and the non-role of government. And that it just is not something that we should be forcing our people to accept. And obviously, the thoughts on the commission are different than what I'm talking about, but I do thank you for your time.
Commissioner Hanley?
It actually kind of rolls right off of what he was saying, but in the opposite respect. I think it is our job to choose how we do recycling. And the other part of it is, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Sean and Karen, when looking at our contract is up with Waste Management in a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And at that point, the odds that all of the bids that we get are going to demand a cart system are very high. A lot of companies, I believe, are moving forward to only cart systems and reducing bag systems because it's better for them, which makes sense. It's better for efficiencies, for safety. And so I think that this is almost, if we don't do it now, in a year and a half, we're going to be forced to do it by the companies that we're looking at signing with, be it Waste Management or all of the other ones that give us bids. And the way that I look at it is pointed out by Sean, we already do require you to have garbage and recycling if you are a resident of the city of Marquette. Right now, we have two choices. This is just bringing it to a more efficient and solid way, and it's going to increase recycling, which is shown whenever places do this. So it's something we want to do. We need to be moving forward instead of just throwing it all away to have recycling. I'm a little sad that it's the 64-gallon. I have the 96 at home and I love it, but I understand why the 64-gallon was chosen. I'm good with that, I think.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Hill?
And just to piggyback off one more thing is the more that we can send to recycling for the landfill, the more money that they're going to be able to make. And the more then that that keeps our costs low over time for our waste management overall for us. One of the challenges for our region has been that, well, we want to recycle, and we've heard that when I was running in 2018, I mean, I was knocking doors and it was recycling and glass. I mean, that is what I heard that was years ago when it came out about the glass not being recycled. So we know we want to do this. And if this is what it's going to take to increase it, and this is what will help us have enough in our system that we can actually have a way to sell it and make money off of it and put it back into productive reuse, which is what we want, this is going to be a part of that process. I can also just quickly, I took my glass recycling to the transfer stations earlier this week, I think it was, maybe last week. And the glass was full. I mean, a whole dumpster full of glass. Like, way to go, folks. Like, we are doing it. This is important. People want it to happen. And it was all glass. I didn't see anything contamination, I mean, in a whole entire dumpster. So I do think this is just a different way of making it happen. And maybe we'll have a cart decorating contest down the road or something.
Blue salamanders?
White deer.
So, other commissioners? I have one comment to piggyback off Commissioner Hill's. You mentioned reducing costs for, or I guess, increasing revenue for the landfill. I would also like to say that it could increase the life of the landfill, which I think at this point is only set to be about 50 more years, that we would be having to look at another area. And any way we can extend the life of that landfill is a cost savings to all of our residents in the greater community. And, all right, one more thing off Commissioner Hanley's comment. I'm just on a roll here, so I'm just gonna go with it. You mentioned waste haulers would potentially require carts, which I know we've discussed. That could be an increased cost to the residents. I hadn't quite thought about it like that too, because if they have to move to a cart at a later date and it's an increased cost in the contract, it was just something I thought about. These are free right now. So that's something as well that folks won't have to pay the cost of these recycling carts. Okay, anything else, commissioners? Commissioner Bonzel.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say that I think that in principle, this is a good idea. I guess I'm just not 100% convinced that we are prepared to execute it properly. And I worry that, so we talked about our view of the role of government, and I'm sure that we all have our own ideas about what the role of government is. My concern is not so much with the idea of having a mandate that people all have to use carts. My concern is that I feel like the role of government is to make sure that the public services we provide actually work really well. And I worry that this may, while we're doing this partially to make our recycling collection service work better and to improve it, that it may unintentionally have some of the opposite effects in terms of discouraging participation from some people who don't want to or cannot use the carts. I worry that the gains in efficiency that we may see in terms of the actual running of the waste collection routes may be at least partially offset by declines in efficiency from more people signing up for this accessibility list when they're required to use a large, cumbersome 64-gallon cart. And I mean, just from an efficiency standpoint, I'll just share my own personal experience. I live in a fourplex with like 8 or 9 other people. And we have 2 64-gallon city recycling bins. And we, even among the 8 or 9 of us, almost never, I don't think we've ever filled them both up in a week. Now, of course, we could just kind of hold on to it, onto the recyclables, but I can't imagine, not only, space considerations and storage considerations aside, I can't imagine why we would need or how we could possibly ever fill 4 64-gallon recycling carts. And that's what we'll get is 4 64-gallon recycling carts. And So from an efficiency standpoint, I feel like that's not actually a very efficient use of public resources, even if it's not the city's money per se. So from that, I mean, I have some other concerns too, but for those reasons and some others, I think I'll have to probably vote no on this. Although I certainly hope that you're correct, Madam Mayor, that in hindsight, we look back and say that this was a good call and that people adjusted to it and it worked.
Any other discussion? All right, let's go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
Just making sure I got my count right. Motion passes 4-3. Does that seem accurate? Just making sure. Okay.
That's surprising.
All right, that is our last item on new business. We are now moving on to public comment. Public comment may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please state your name and physical address unless you've already done so at this meeting.
Hi, you finally did it. You finally made the vote that's going to get each and every one of you recalled. You finally messed with putting out a garbage bag. I cannot tell you the lack of common sense I heard from you tonight. In my case, I'm going to be calling Commissioner Hanley. She can come over to my house and shovel her way back in the winter and drag the cart out. Then when they come, I'll call her again at 3 o'clock in the morning and she can pull it back, shovel her way back in to get it out of the way of the plows, to get it out of the way of the guy I call to have come up, plow out my driveway. I cannot believe your lack of common sense. You mess with garbage collection for no reason other than your vendor says you have to? Tell the vendor to pick up the garbage. I have them on video and they dance off of that truck and pick up the garbage. This is not necessary or required, and I don't care if it's free. In fact, because it's free, I'm highly suspicious of it. And I know the people in my neighborhood who have these carts, and I see them dumped over in the yard and with the top flapping in the wind on those windy nights. These are not the panacea you think they are. But you finally did it. You finally going to get yourself recalled over this because it's not necessary. Number 2, you did the right thing with the fire truck. Congratulations. I can't actually believe there was anybody saying, well, we can get by without a fire truck. But I heard it too. And number 3, I'm kind of getting more and more to be an expert on garbage. And if you want people to recycle more, you make it easier, not harder. And that thing frightens me. It frightens me because I don't know what I'm going to do with it. And I don't know how I'm going to keep it away from the front yard. And I don't know if somebody's going to steal it or if it's going to break. So if you want more recycling, make it easier. And don't let your vendor tell you what to do. Number 4, we're starting cigarette recycling. As soon as the snowbanks melt and we can get the garbage off the ground, I'll be working with different hardware stores in town to put out more collection spots for the cigarette butts, especially at places like gas stations and auto repair shops, because most cars do not have ashtrays anymore, and a lot of the stuff comes from there. But I really, really, really think this decision is absolutely the one that has the least common sense. And I will be the one letting people know that they have no choice but to drag that thing up and down their property because we get it for free. Anything you get for free costs too much.
Anyone else for public comment? Anyone else?
Tony Boyle, 401 West Michigan Street. Just first like to say I'm actually excited about the carts. I have nowhere to put them out of the way, but I actually don't care. I'm gonna have 2 of them on my porch, proud, and I am so excited to wheel my trash and recycling to the curb instead of having to schlep a big bag that often tears and falls apart. I'm excited to no longer have to constantly buy bins to put my recycling in just to have it blow away in the wind. It's a constant process. Besides, if I, don't want to use it for recycling anymore, it looks perfect to do a rain barrel and start some water catchment for my garden. Change is hard. There will always be folks who are naysaying, who are angry and scared because the future is uncertain. But it's going to be a lot of small stuff like this if we want to actually deal with anything and not just actually, not just talk about it and spin our wheels in place. Moving forward with things that may seem like an imposition now are actually just us adjusting to new modes of being, which is going to happen increasingly fast as we continue to face the challenges of a changing climate, of economic and social instability. We're in the thick of it. I mean, if we are losing our minds over 64 gallons of trash, I don't know, guys. you know me, I get worked up about stuff, but sometimes you just gotta get worked up about the right stuff. And you gotta accept that everyone is just trying their best and moving forward in the way that they think is best and the most helpful. And I trust that you are doing that. And I understand that this was a hard decision. I also don't like being told what to do. But sometimes, we exist in that gray space and we have to just constantly reevaluate. But that doesn't mean that we can't not move forward. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Anyone else for public comment?
I'm going to state my name just because I am running for city commission, so one of these seats are possible, one of the 4 names. So my name's Matt Lutenberger. My pitch on this whole 64-gallon thing is, what do the people who already have gallon things, are they paying for it still? Do we still have to pay for this in the future? And for my history with other cities, whenever they switch over to a new waste management company, they get new waste management materials. So a green company, and we hire a red company, is going to have to come around and give us all new ones. So I'm wondering, where does the cost benefit come if we don't know for fact that we're dealing with this company for 10 years? Secondly, that's a lot of trash. I live alone. I produce about one of our small bags, the green bags. I produce one of those every month, once a month. I only put it out because it stinks with the old food and the cat food. So my problem with trash pickup is that I'm paying a lot of money for something I don't use. My recycling, it goes out probably once, every 3 weeks because I don't have glass. But when I put my recycling out, it's a 20-gallon barrel, and it's only filled with cat food cans, and milk jugs. So a lot of what I'm going to do in this future, if I can't put out my 20-gallon thing or my little bin, is that I'm putting all that into my trash, which, here's the thing I want to bring back to a point. It's reduce, reuse, and recycle. It's not just use and recycle. So anything we can do to reduce the amount of waste that goes into the dumpster should be better. So smaller containers, because you get to the point where you're crushing the things or you're buying differently. For instance, buying food that doesn't come in big brown paper bag, big brown boxes, and instead only in bags. Little things like that are the culture changes that I don't want the government in telling me what I should and should not be doing. So if I can get by with that, and that's all my trash and all my recycling for 1 month, how come I'm paying $35 and the neighbor who puts out maybe that much every week because they've got a family of 4 pays the exact same amount? So the reason we had trash bags was that it reduced the amount of universal cost. And in that sense, I'd like you guys to reconsider that. Now, I only got 15 seconds, and I'm going to go back to Lakeview Arena. How much will it cost to buy it? Because from what I hear from everybody, it's grants are providing the recreation in town. So if I'm going to provide all the grants, there are 10 groups inside of Lakeview Arena who will provide all the grants and make it self-sufficient. Thanks.
Anyone else for public comment?
Geraldine Nault, 1851 North McClellan Avenue. I had a question, or a thought that maybe I missed if it was brought up. People that bring their garbage to the to the transfer station, will they get a credit on their garbage fee? I didn't look at my bill before I came here. I probably would have figured that out. Part of the garbage fee is for the dump and the recycle. And so I'm wondering if those people that bring their recycle and their garbage to the transfer station will get a credit on their bill. And if that was mentioned and I missed it, I apologize. The other thing is the the consent agenda 3J. There, in the packet, there was a date, May 31st. Is that likely to change? Or I know they'll put out an announcement in the paper, but is that likely to change?
We typically answer at the end, but I don't think
Oh,
so.
that's right. I forgot.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yes, thank you.
Any others for public comment? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. That brings us to comments from the commission. We'll start things off with Commissioner Stonehouse.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me wander just for a second. TV6 had a great story on about 3 or 4 days ago that dealt with Marquette and Houghton being recognized as two of the best cities in the nation for remote workers. The outfit that did the survey was Zoomtown USA, America's Best Cities for Workers, listed 8 Michigan cities, the 2 in the Upper Peninsula, again, Houghton and Marquette, among that group. But it is interesting that they ranked the metrics on a weighted average of home values, rental costs, or web connectivity, safety, park access, availability of co-working spaces, city and state level athletic health levels and gym options, affordability of goods and services and utilities, as well as affordability and availability of child care services and restaurants. Now, there's a takeaway from that little story that really, I think, is very relevant to us, because problems we see, particularly like workforce housing, internet connectivity, for example, when we benchmark those problems against the 1,500 or so cities that they used as their sample, we see we are far less, I think, than sometimes we think we are. In other words, the work that we've been putting forward towards those 2 issues particularly leads us to think internally that, boy, we are in trouble, boy, we have to fix them, this is a panic situation. And the reality is, when we take our situation and benchmark it against those 1,500 other cities, and we come out so high, we are doing very, very well. We have yet a journey to make and improvements to make, but we aren't nearly as bad off as we often consider ourselves to be. So I think all things need to be just held in relative value. Thank you, Your Honor.
Commissioner Bonzo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have too much to say other than that I appreciate everybody's willingness to bring up different points of view tonight, and some pretty important discussions that have major implications for city services. I also just want to note, since we won't be meeting again before the beginning of May, that next month in May is National Nurses Month, and that May 6th through May 12th is National Nurses Week. So if you know a nurse, please thank them, especially over the last couple of years during COVID-19. Truly, our nurses and all of our frontline medical workers have provided an invaluable service to our community, and really to our country. don't want to think about where we would be without all the wonderful people at the medical facilities here in Marquette and elsewhere, really making a lot of sacrifices and having utmost professionalism and putting themselves at risk, frankly, to make sure that we're all safe and as safe and healthy as possible. I also just want to note that I think it'll be interesting to see some of the public hearings and discussions we'll be having in the month of May about specifically on the 31st with regards to some of the land development code amendments, especially those that are trying to promote some more incremental missing middle housing development. I'm really encouraged to see those public hearings moving forward and hopefully those changes being implemented. I think that although I think that it's very accurate to say that, we need to think about things in relative terms, but I think that, it also, if you have a list of 1,500 cities in the United States and say Marquette is ranked in the top 1/3 of cities in terms of housing affordability, or internet access or what have you, the number one, that may not necessarily stay the same as time goes on. We need to look at the trend, not just where we're at right now, but also, the fact that we might have less expensive housing than another peer community doesn't necessarily make it easier for people in Marquette to afford a place to live, whether that's a rental apartment or they're buying a home. And so I think we need to think about that as well, that the entire national housing market has gotten so insane, frankly, that, even if we're doing relatively well compared to some other places, that doesn't necessarily mean that we are anywhere near an affordable place to live in absolute terms. But that's about all I have tonight. Thank you.
Commissioner Davis?
A quick clarification and then a comment. And we talked about recycling tonight, and those carts are for recycling. And I think some people are under the impression they're going to get two, one for garbage and one for recycling. It's not. We are just talking about the recycling. If you are using your bags for the garbage, you could continue to use our bags for the garbage. But that said, we have not solved our garbage and our recycling problem. And I'm taking to heart what I've heard. One of the things that floats to the surface is fairness for those who are single and don't produce much garbage or recycling compared to those have larger numbers of people in their home and would easily fill one of those 64-gallon carts with garbage or recycling. And how could we possibly make that fairness to the residents be more to fix that? And I guess that might be topics for the next time we negotiate a contract. So thank you.
Commissioner Hanley?
All right, perfect. First, I want to touch on what we talked about today. Change is very uncomfortable. I know this, and I stand behind my vote to choose the recycling carts today. I implore anyone who wants to know why to call me or email me or text me, and I would be happy to discuss this with you. I fully believe that through education and problem solving for issues that arise, we will be happy with the result of this. I do think that there will be things that we work through in the next 6 months before we get the carts, but I think that those are things that we can work towards. I don't think that this is an end-all be-all. I do want to touch on the cost. I do believe that by doing this recycling cart system and having everyone get these carts, they won't say waste management on them, from what I know, because they'll be our carts, correct? Or will they say it still?
I believe they would be our cards when they have the city logo on it.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Similar to it, yeah.
And the other thing is I believe everyone's bill will go down, that has recycling on it, will go down $1.65 a month, I believe is what it is.
That's something we will have to amend the contract for, but you essentially, you'd have the cart for free instead of that lease payment that you would be.
Perfect. So the people that have the carts would then see a reduction in their bill.
Essentially, yes. That part would be something that has to come separately.
Absolutely.
If you're not using any carts right now and you get a recycling cart, you won't see an increase. If you're using bags and you have a recycling cart, you should see a decrease. And if you are obviously using the garbage carts and the recycling carts, you should also see a decrease.
Perfect. So that is my point on that. And my second point is I was lucky enough last week to get to be a judge in the Tom Baldini soapbox competition at the local high schools competed in. And I want to say that I was so floored by how much work these students put into their speeches. A lot of them talked about wanting to put these before government and local government and having people here. And I did express that they could all come. Their speeches were all under 3 minutes. 3 minutes is our public comment, and we would love to hear them. They were great. These kids put work in, and they talked about a variety of issues, from changing the foster care system to getting rid of the two-party system for the for elections in our country, which was an amazing speech. He was the one that actually won. But they talked about all sorts of different issues that were important to them. And these issues that are important to these kids and the youth that they're seeing are the issues that are going to be important in the next upcoming years. They're the ones that they're seeing that we may not see. And to see the youth become part of it, I know that there's been talk in previous times about getting a youth commission involved in the city commission, having these kids have a part and have a say in our local government, or at least be an advisory so we can see what's important to them. And I really think that this showed me all the more how important that would be going forward. And I really hope we do work that way as a commission. Thank you.
Pro Tem Mayor.
I honestly think I'm good tonight.
Commissioner Hills.
Thank you. Two things I want to say. One about tonight's meeting. And thank you for the valuable discussion. Thank you for the sharing of ideas. Thank you always for the staff to do the work, to give us the homework, to make the decisions that we are elected to do up here. And I agree that the most important thing, of course, is to reduce. You want to rethink, reuse, and then recycle. So finding ways to actually reduce our trash, of course, and to reduce inputs is the most important thing. And I think that we will find ways to make this happen. Again, they won't say waste management on them, and that this is ways of helping us live more sustainably over time, which is really important. The second thing, actually there's three things. The next thing I wanted to mention is it's getting to be not just spring, but also orange cone season. And so the construction projects are starting. I want to thank the engineering department that there's some upcoming projects that are up on the website. So that's something, a better communication that we've been wanting to have about construction projects. So if you go to the city's website, there is information on construction projects, including some that I believe start next week or even this week. So I'm glad to see us working to have better communication on that. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, on next week on May 4th, the Marquette Board of Light and Power is going to have a work session on what happens with the future of the South Beach site. And while the city is a partner and will be, but that is not our land. That is the Board of Light and Power land. But I know people have a lot of concerns about what happens out on South Beach. And I encourage you to go, and we can have, I'm not sure what the BLP plans to do, but we can have, making sure that folks are aware of this conversation so that they can be a part of it. And, and then the last thing, good news coming. You've heard talk about the Michigan Green Communities Challenge, which is a way of first cataloging what good things a community has done to be more sustainable. And we've received back we submitted our information, and we have heard that we've gotten the gold ranking, which is the highest one. There's gold, silver, bronze. It does run for one more week, but the scores came back, and that's the tribute to the good work that we've done so far and the more that we could be doing. So stay tuned. There's more to come on that. Thank you.
I think things have been sufficiently covered. I do have two quick things. So one, I'm not able to share details yet, but I did about a week and a half ago conduct the first same-sex marriage here at City Hall. And I will have an opportunity in several months to share the full details of that. And I just wanted to thank Commissioner Bonzel and Commissioner Hill for providing witness services for that wonderful event. And then second, I just wanted to reiterate that, the changing of seasons, I know we're kind of shifting gears from hibernation and snow removal mode into construction, a lot of projects and a lot of work for city staff. So wanted to provide some recognition. Thank you for continuing the good work that you're doing, and we'll continue to support you however we can. Oh, I have a third thing I just remembered. On Friday, we had a subcommittee meeting to talk about the old hospital development. Can't share a lot of details about that at this point. When more information is public, I certainly can share in a public meeting. On that subcommittee was myself, Pro Tem Mayor, and Commissioner Hanley. We did meet with, I'm sorry, Commissioner Davis. I'm starting to get tired here. My apologies. We met with the NMU Foundation and with the chair of the subcommittee from the NMU Foundation to talk about this matter, to discuss the potential developer. And I did want to share that because it sounds like there will be a news story coming out about kind of high level what I've just said in the near future. So at this point, that's about all I can share, but we'll keep you posted. I know May is going to be a busy month for us between that project, the Vault project, and likely some others that we will be discussing and voting on. So stay tuned, more details to come, and just know that when we have more information we can share, we will. I was hoping, City Manager, that you could address Jerry Nault's question if you didn't have it written down. You probably already did, so.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. I'm all set.
Thanks. I will address that question. So we did set the public hearing this meeting, and that will stay. So May 31st, and just so you're aware, we set 4 public hearings today. 3 of those are on May 31st, and 1 is on May 9th. Ordinances.
I actually met her other question. I'm sorry, Karen. She asked
about
folks
about
who haul their trash how that will work on the bill.
Yes, no, that is, so there is no discount for that because that is something that's included in that fee as an option. But then you're encouraged to use the curbside, really. So there's no discount if you take your stuff to the transfer station.
Okay, thank you. And anything else you had besides the questions?
While we're on that topic, I do just want to address a few things. One really important one is the special accommodations can be made by calling Public Works. So to call and inquire about that and to set that up starts at Department of Public Works, not Waste Management. So please do call that main line for that if you need that accommodation. The other thing is we understand that we of all people, the UP understands the one size fits all does not work. So we understand that. And while we say that there's not an option directly to opt out, we understand that there are very certain and specific circumstances that arise that may not make it feasible. And we are committed to making this as painless as possible for our residents. But we're asking for a little bit in return as well, and to have that effort to try. Because this recycling carts program does 2 things. It increases the recycling for people who do recycle, and it also gives the accessibility and the option and the availability of recycling for people who normally don't. And that's really what we're trying to target and to enhance. So while we ask for a little bit of patience and a little bit of understanding and a little bit of effort to try this, and then we can really talk about this, especially when we start transitioning or talking about a new contract, whether it's with Waste Management or whoever. The other thing is there's an education piece coming out. That is a key part of this program that will make it successful. So that is coming out, and a lot of those details on the transition and the exchanging of carts and the distribution of carts will be included in that, but then also the benefits and how to use your cart, not to say you lift the lid and put it in, but what you use it for. That is a real key component of this grant, and that's actually more important than even the distribution of the carts. So that is coming, and that will be more information. The entire process is still being worked out. This is step 1. So we will continue to provide information to the commission and to the public as we move forward with this program and implementing it. So again, fall is that target date for distribution, but you will be hearing more about that sooner. And then also, I think we covered everything actually. So I apologize. Let's end on a good note, right?
Yep. All set. Okay. We are adjourned at 8:34 p.m. Thanks, everyone.